Welcome back to the First Team. I'm Joe DeLeone. With me is my co-host Ryan Roberts, draft analyst for A to Z Sports. Today, we're going to be breaking down the film from what was a fantastic game last Friday, Illinois versus Nebraska. Of course, we're going to be talking a ton about Dylan Raiola, who is a fantastic young player. Lots of great throws that he had. I got to say, though, before we jump into getting specific to some of these players, Ryan, there is just such an improvement, it feels like, for just Illinois in general. I came away very impressed by the way that Illinois played. It feels like they're coming to fruition what we thought they could have had last year. They could have been this quality Big Ten team in the top, in the top half, top quarter of the programs in the Big Ten. But what we're seeing physical up front on defense and on offense, and they're just chipping away in these games and finding success where they can in order to pull out victories.
Imagine not being quote tweeted by Brett Bielema.
I've been quote tweeted by Brett Bielema.
Have you really? Have you really?
Yeah, he quote last year when I was and I was a little scorned when I was hyping them up and I was saying that this is the best defensive line in the Big Ten, or one of the best defensive lines in the Big Ten, with Jerjon Newton and Keith Randolph. He quote tweeted me first, so yeah, I know what it's like. Well, you're second to the party, buddy.
No, I don't. Mine got more traction, I think. So I don't think you win that battle. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of an interesting matchup this past week, because I would say that these teams have kind of taken on the personality of their coaches a little bit, right? I mean, like, this is what Brett Bielema was built off of, man, being physical and playing good defense and being good up front. I mean, the Illinois offensive line, despite losing Isaiah Adams and Julian Pearl from the unit last year, is worlds better than it was last year, which is just kind of wild to think about, right? So both lines, I think, have improved a lot for Illinois. Well, I shouldn't say improved defensively. They're playing well, though. The Illinois defensive line's playing well. And Nebraska, man, even though they lost, Joe, like, I feel very strong about the future for Nebraska football under Matt Rule, especially when you think about like Dylan Raiola when he's a junior and not a true freshman, right? Like, so I think that we're seeing two programs that are trending upward, and I think though that Nebraska is going to be trending upward very, very quickly moving forward, but we'll see.
There's an obvious reason for why Nebraska is going to make that ascension, and it is the focal point that they have on offense in Dylan Raiola. I'm glad that we're getting to him now after the games that he's played. It's very tangible for me, the week-to-week improvement that he's had in his decision-making, in his aggressiveness. The traits and the skills are just so there. It's unexpected. You know, we're not used to seeing freshmen who can step in and not only make plays, but make high-level throws that most of the rest of the country can't make. There's one clip that I scheduled to share a little bit later today from when we taped this, where he's got pressure bearing down on him. He pushes off with his left leg, and he just kind of whips the ball out of his hand to a tight end and still hits him in stride. Those are throws that guys, some in the NFL, can't make. My big thing with Dylan Raiola, and I think it's a factor that when we talk about decision-making is not really elaborated on or quantified, and I think is very important in modern offenses in the NFL, is anti-timidness. And what I mean by that is not being afraid to take chances, not being afraid to deliver the ball in a tight window, not being afraid to trust his playmakers down the field. Like the one play where he was picked off, that could have been a touchdown. If his guy comes down with that football, that's a touchdown. It goes in a completely different direction.
Touchdown, dude. That was a good ball. It was a good ball. It should have been a touchdown. But yeah.
Great play on both sides on ending up taking that ball away. But what tends to kill some of these guys, and maybe it's the DJU effect, where you're just so overanalyzing the situation, and then you're just taking like the easiest option that's only for a couple of yards, and the offense isn't charging forward. It is hard to stop a quarterback that is aggressive and has an arm like Dylan Raiola. I got to credit his confidence.
Well, I mean, so we can take it from the general physical perspective for a second, right? He's 6'3", he's let's say 230 pounds. He's a physically pretty well put together kid. He's got a strong arm. He throws from multiple arm angles, and he's not like a crazy athlete, but he's athletic enough and definitely springy enough in the pocket to create some things outside of structure. But Joe, it goes way beyond the physical perspective for me, right? Like, I think it kind of meshes with what you're talking about a little bit. For a kid that is maybe 18 or 19 years old, he plays with some of the most calmness I have ever seen for a true freshman. He is an absolute command. It's rare, dude. Like it, because usually what happens is even the quarterbacks that come in that are true freshmen that are playing well, they're making big time plays, but then you see those moments where you're just like, yeah, the game's still moving kind of fast for him, man. Like, he took a bad sack. His eyes are kind of all over the place. He doesn't pull the trigger. I have never seen a kid that looks like a fourth year senior as a true freshman before at the quarterback position on the major power forward level. He is playing with it's like he's unflappable right now. And I'm sure that there's going to be a game where pressure's getting to him more consistently and he's going to have to really kind of bear down and, maybe he'll get shell shocked a little bit for a second. But that is by far the most impressive part of Dylan Raiola to me, is that he is carrying himself like he's an NFL player right now on the fields, and people joke about and I've joked about it too, the Patrick Mahomes thing, right? Where he's kind of obsessed with him or whatever, but he feels like it feels like he's almost been personified with that professional aspect of him, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like he is carrying himself in a completely different way, and he has the limelight on him. People are watching him, and let's be honest, a lot of people are mesmerized by him succeeding, but others want him to fail, like they do, because they want to be like, oh, 5-star flounders, like that stuff happens. Like, if we're going to be honest with ourselves, this is a kid that I think has always had the light on him. And I think that he's used to it at this point. I don't think that he runs from it, because I think that that's the problem that some people come into, is that they run from that limelight, and some others they excel in it. And I think that we're seeing a kid that excels, and he's not afraid of that spotlight to be on him.
This is not hyperbolic to say, but this is easily, the most gifted true freshman that we've seen. I know that there's so much that can change in the next 2 years before he has the opportunity to jump to the NFL. Yeah. But even when we have freshmen that have the tools of Dylan Raiola, they don't have that mental aspect to truly succeed yet, right off the bat. There's a reason why most of them don't play right away. Most of them usually don't get on the field until they're sophomores or juniors. It's to his benefit. And here's the biggest part of this. I'm really glad that he didn't end up at Georgia or he didn't end up at Ohio State, because he gets to go out there and he gets to play now. And he's able to play at a high level, but more importantly, he gets to learn and to get better. He is one of the most ready-to-go true freshmen that we're probably going to see for a very long time and have not seen since prior to him. Mm-hmm. He's only going to get better. That's what gets frightening about him. I don't think that we're anywhere near his ceiling. That's if we really tangibly take a look at this, he is a quarter into what his ceiling could be. And I don't know exactly how to truly define that ceiling. It's being the first overall pick. It is being the best player in college football. If there was, before we move on to some other guys, if there's anything that he needs to fix, what to you stands out? I think that maybe there could just be him trying to overly look for the home run, which comes with the play style that he has. There's sometimes where he holds the ball a little bit too long and doesn't take what is truly given to him. But I feel like that's my only major qualm for him being a true freshman.
I think that when you have a natural instinct to make plays, sometimes you tend to go big game hunting a little bit too often, right, and you don't take what the easy route is all the time. And I think that we're seeing right now that this kid's, he's got huge balls. He really does. He's able to stay in there and be able to work outside of pressure. And some of the outlet throws he makes at working out of pressure is almost absurd, man. Just the throwing from different arm angles and his body posture all messed up and him about to take a massive shot. And he's able to stay in there and complete the pass is pretty special. But I do think in the NFL level, I know it's hilarious that he's compared to Patrick Mahomes, because Patrick Mahomes is the outlier in this conversation, because Patrick Mahomes can pretty much do whatever the heck he wants on the field, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't come back to haunt him. But there are going to be moments where it does haunt you, where if you getting the ball out of your hand quick is the best option at all times. So I think it's just pulling the reins back a little bit of being the hero ball guy. And I'm not even talking about taking shots. I love taking shots, and I think that needs to be a massive part of his game. I'm talking about some of these plays where it's you're past 2.5, 3 seconds where it's like, brother, like I think we should probably get the ball out of our hand now. Like we probably should.
The overtime sack that he took's a good example of what we're talking about here.
Just a little. I mean, I don't think over manipulating is a word, right? But like he's trying to do a little bit too much at the end of the day. He just needs to stay within himself a little bit more.
Less of an elaboration on this guy, but I just wanted to touch on, and I know that you might roll your eyes, but I do have to give some flowers to Luke Altmaier, who last year had a lot of troubles. He has been extremely efficient.
What kind of flowers are you giving him?
Well, I don't know. I'm not a flower guy.
Roses.
I'm giving him some love here. That he has been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country. He hasn't thrown an interception. He's completing over 70% of his passes. Sometimes when you see a guy like that, and then you put on the film, you think that he's just going to be check down, check down, check down. I don't think that Luke Altmaier is going to be a starting NFL quarterback. His arm is not big enough for that. He doesn't have any traits that really excel to the point where I think he eventually becomes a starter in the NFL. I'm not jumping down that category, but he feels like the total characterization of what I'm looking for in a backup. And I would draft him somewhere on day 3, middle to late day 3 as a backup quarterback. I would give him an opportunity. Because all I saw on film was him making plays, him getting the ball out super quickly. He does benefit from playing in an RPO-heavy offense, but he is not hesitating. He's making decisions. He's making the right decisions. And his stats might even be better if it wasn't for a number of drops that happened with some of the guys he's throwing the ball to. Again, not like a physical outlier, but we have to give him credit for the decision-making that he shows in the poise, the composure, all of those things.
Did you mention that he was at Ole Miss before under Lane Kiffin and he transferred?
I did not.
Oh, okay. Sorry, it was just a quick note. It was a quick note.
Okay.
You know who he reminds me of, Joe? Who was the kid that was at Pitt, then transferred to James Madison, was really good at James Madison, then
Ben DiNucci.
Ben DiNucci.
I played against Ben DiNucci.
Luke Altmaier has been
effed all over us.
He is Ben DiNucci, in my opinion. There's a lot of similarities physically, and he reminds me a lot of him. So that's
Ben
just my quick
DiNucci got drafted. He got drafted on day 3, so that plays into my point.
Should he have, though? Should he have?
Maybe.
All right. Anyway, I think he has improved a lot in that system. I think he is a rhythm-based passer. The ball comes out well and quick. I do believe that he is a function of an RPO heavy system. I think that's the best case scenario for him overall.
Yeah.
I think the arm is fine. I think the athleticism is pretty good. So he'll get a look in the NFL. I'm not quite as bullish as you are on him at the moment.
I'm not saying 4th rounder here and he's your, starter to be. I'm saying 6th, 7th rounder. You take him. He's a camp arm. If he does really well, he sticks around. He's your backup.
Fair.
There are worse backup quarterbacks in the fact that DeVito still has a job, I think really paints that picture.
There definitely are worse. I mean, we have some of these quarterback situations. Like, what was the one kid's name? Boyle? Is it Tim Boyle?
Hey, don't hate on my guy Tim. Don't hate on Tim. I used to work out with Tim when I was in college.
Tim Boyle.
Don't hate on Tim.
Tim Boyle threw more interceptions than touchdowns in his college career at like Indiana State and somewhere else. A horrible quarterback.
He, without a doubt, was probably one of the most intense people that I have ever worked out with. That's all. I would be snapping in the gym that we used to train in, and he would, whenever I made it, like I was in like focused and like being really on top of what I was doing and I was going through the motions, he would freaking lay into me. And I was like, well, why is this guy giving me such a hard time? He doesn't really know who I am. So don't crap on my guy, Tim. He's a good leader.
The point was that he was not a good college quarterback at all, and he's lasted in the NFL for several years. That was the point.
Let's talk about some of these other guys. On the Illinois side of things, let's talk about some of these Illinois players that stood out.
Offensively or defensively, where are we starting here?
Let's jump into both. We mentioned the Illinois offensive line feels a lot better. Melvin Priestley was somebody you kind of texted me about, and I watched. His Twitter account will be discussed on Hack City later, but I thought that for his impact, the way that he played, pretty stout blocker. I
he's
believe
physical,
he's a junior
dude.
right now. Yeah.
He's a junior, former Grambling State left tackle who transferred to Illinois. He is not he is going to be, I mean, Joe, he's listed at like 6'4", and what was it, like 315? I think he was listed at. Let me get it. Yeah, 6'4", 315. There's no chance he's 6'4". He's 6'3" and some change. He's going to be an interior offensive lineman on the next level. You can see it in pass pro. Like, he just does not have the reach or the general foot quickness to be a offensive tackle on an island. But man, he's physical, like super dense dude. Combos to the second level. He can create movement at the point of attack. So yes, Melvin Priestley at right tackle, I think is. I think he's probably the best NFL draft prospect of anybody up there. I know that like JC Davis is someone to know, former New Mexico transfer, but I think that Priestley was the guy that impressed me most on the offensive line.
I also kind of threw a note down one of their offensive player.
Okay.
Pat Bryant, number 13, their wide receiver, pretty good body control. I know he's an older guy. I don't know. I don't know if he's more than like at most a late day 3 guy, but
yeah,
tremendous body control, man. He's got some pretty good hands, big frame that he brings to like being like a 4th or a 5th receiver in the NFL.
You know what's so weird about the Illinois team last year is that they really struggled to like throw the ball or consistently move the ball, but they have three guys that are at least going to get looks in the NFL, which is kind of weird. Like they had Casey Washington, Isaiah Williams, and then
Zachary
Pat
Franklin.
Bryant was on. Well, Zachary wasn't on the team last year, right? He was on Ole Miss.
Yeah, sorry, he just came in. Yeah.
So Pat Bryant, long boundary type of wide receiver, wins with length, huge catch radius, pretty smooth too off the line. I think that he's got pretty good release package. I don't know if he's a burner. Like I don't know if I really saw like great speed, but he can win down the field with the catch radius. And then Zachary Franklin, who was really good at UTSA and spent a year at Ole Miss, just kind of got lost in the shuffle because we know Ole Miss at least has a pretty good wide receiver room. But Joe, I don't think he's great at anything. But I think he's pretty solid at a bunch of different things, right? Like a pretty good route runner, pretty solid after the catch, pretty good hands. Like, again, nothing exemplary there, but I wouldn't be shocked if he's a late round guy that just kind of sticks on a roster, like a wide receiver 4, wide receiver
Special
5
teamer.
on the next level. Like, yeah, I think Pat Bryant's got more upside than Zachary Franklin, but I think Zachary Franklin is maybe a little bit more of a well-rounded player comparatively to Pat Bryant.
Who on defense caught your attention for Illinois?
Man, a lot of them. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Who you got?
Well, so defensive line wise, I would say he is not a starter yet. Well, because they run a 3-4, so I'm just going to bunch the 3-4 outside linebackers into the defensive line for now, just for argument's sake here. We know about Seth Coleman, who will get drafted, outside pass rusher. He's a pretty good player. You know, I think he's limited, but he's good. They're back. He's listed as a backup, but Alec Bryant was a guy I wrote down number 3. He is 6'3", 250. But pretty powerful and runs with a hot motor. I don't think that he's going to corner consistently on the NFL level if he gets there, but he had a couple sacks in this game, and I thought that he really showed just that high level of efforts and physicality and power profile. So he's interesting. Gabe Jacas, number 17. I don't know if you noticed this, Joe.
Yes. Well, he's somebody that we had talked about a little bit at RPM last year, and I tallied him down and kind of wanted to see a little bit more because he was a young player, but he is long, and the production's starting to like really hit now for him.
Well, and they're moving him around a little bit more. So before he was just a 3-4 outside linebacker, there were reps where he was down as a down lineman in a 3-man front because he's up to like 275 pounds. I think he was a little stiff to be a pure outside guy, but if we're starting to add weight to him, and if he could be like in the 280 something range, he might be a guy that can just kind of line up in a couple of different alignments and provide you value there and be a talented run stopper. And I don't think he's necessarily an NFL kid. And then I know we'll work backward to like the secondary because I think there's a couple interesting guys in that secondary. But Teron Edwards, Joe, number 23, the nose tackle. He is 6'2", 305, and my boy is not 6'2". Like, there's no chance.
No, I was about to say he's 6 foot. He is 6 foot and change. There's no way he's 6'2".
I don't even know if he'll even get he'll get a shot.
I don't think he will. I almost wrote him down, and all I heard in the back of my head was you probably say no. He's not long enough. He's not.
Oh no,
he's not. He's strong.
Yeah, I don't think he'll necessarily stick on the NFL level, but man, he is a bowl of fury on the college level, dude.
He's low.
Yeah, there was one rep I highlighted where he was getting double teamed, dude. He literally ducked underneath the both blockers, ducked underneath of them. I think
I know one of the plays you're talking about.
Hilarious, dude. So much fun. Number 23 on the inside of that defense. Hilarious.
Who do you have in the secondary that you caught your attention?
I liked him 2 years ago as a true freshman, but he was hurt most of the last year. Matthew Bailey, who's their strong safety, number 7.
Yep.
I think he's a big physical athlete, just a guy to kind of keep an eye on because now he's only a redshirt sophomore. Miles Scott, I think, has a little bit of something at number 10, but the guy that I really like that Devin Jackson actually recommended recently for RPM is the nickel Xavier Scott, number 14.
Dude, his production is bonkers right now. Tackling production, PBU production, interception production. He has been like the MVP for that defense. So any recommended, like anyone who's pushing him is a good choice because he could be not like a huge, tremendous riser throughout this process, but the way that he plays the ball in the air, it needs to be recognized.
He's physical. He's pretty quick. Yep. He's a pure nickel kid, so he's going to play inside. He's only a true junior, so, I mean, he could be in 2025 or 2026, but, like, there is something to be said about these guys that have all the requisite traits, maybe nothing flashy, but are always around the football. I mean, that's what he is for my opinion. So, in my opinion. So, if you're watching Illinois defense, keep a close eye for number 14.
Nebraska's defense, I had 2 defensive line. There's no one else on Illinois that you want to bring up?
Nah, I think we're good there. Yep, we're all good. Yep.
Nebraska's defensive line, outside of their defensive line, I think it's kind of a bit of a, who's who, just nothing too crazy unless there's anyone that caught your attention.
Tommy Hill's supposed to have some fans at corner. I didn't really see it in this game. So, I mean, he's on my watch list to kind of get more eyes on because I didn't even get to him in the preseason. So I'll keep eyes on him, but like he didn't do anything in this game that like caught my attention massively. So
one defensive tackle that is a name to know now, and then one defensive tackle that is forward looking that I actually recommended for RPM last year, Nash Hutmacher. He plays exactly how his name sounds. Not a highly drafted kid, but big frame. He almost looks like he got bigger from last year. He is powerful as all hell. He's an early down defensive lineman. I'm not going to rely on him in any passing situations in the NFL, but his motor, the way that he plays, the frame, all of those things kind of check the boxes for somebody that you take that opportunity late day 3, maybe as a high priority UDFA. The physicality is what you're buying into. He kind of embodies what this Nebraska defense is at the current moment. And then that current forward-looking guy, Cameron Lendhart, who still rotating in, he is somebody who I think that next year and beyond, probably more of a 4-year player, is going to be one that next season we'll be saying, who's this Lendhart kid?
Yeah.
Highly recruited player.
IMG Academy, baby. IMG.
Very, very twitchy. Like you start to see on some of these reps where it's not all the way there all the time, but the bend, the power, all those things where he could be a really premier interior pass rusher if he got on the field more. It kind of stinks that he's got these 2 upperclassmen in front of him, so his usage isn't as much as I think we'd like.
Well, I think his body's still transforming to a little bit because for people to, I mean, he was an edge recruit, and I think the depth chart has him listed as an edge too, but like he definitely is trending towards the interior defensive line full time because he's only 260 pounds right now is the problem, right? He's still 6'3", 260. So we still need to kind of develop his body a little bit. Hutmacher, dude, which I'm assuming you are correct in that pronunciation.
Yeah.
I don't know what to do with him, Joe. Because like
this is where I stand with him because he's just banging heads, but like athletically, that's what's kind of where I have a ton of pause.
Yeah, he plays hard, dude. Like he made one play, I think it was on a screen or an outside run, I can't remember, where he was working in pursuit, and I was like, my dude is slow as all hell, but he somehow got there because he was hustling.
Motor.
Dude. I'm like, all right,
motor.
Yeah. He's an interesting player. I think the Ty Robinson kid, the other defensive tackle, number 9, will get a look in the NFL too, just because he's kind of the same. He's just a big, densely built dude. So those guys will get looks, whether they work out or not. You know who he kind of reminds me of? Do you remember Bo Allen that played with the Philadelphia Eagles? Was the Wisconsin kid? I wouldn't be surprised if Nash Hutmacher ends up being like a Bo Allen guy that lasts in the NFL for like 4 or 5 years or something like that as a run stopper.
Anyone else on the Nebraska defense?
Not on the defense. Got a couple guys on offense. So
I had one guy on offense, another one who caught my attention last year, and I kind of was in a little bit of a wait and see mode. Their starting center, number 66, Ben Scott. I think he was the best offensive lineman. Pretty good size and just frame for a center that I think that he could play a little bit of guard in the NFL, that if you needed him to. Just was impressed by the base. This seems like just a well-rounded, confident, experienced center that knows body positioning, knows body control, not as flexible as some of the premier centers that we're going to talk about in this class, but he feels like somebody who I'm going to kind of keep an eye on for back end of this center class, interior offensive lineman class, to be a day 3 pick, because right now there's really not a ton of options for, first of all, centers, but centers who can swing and play both guard and center.
Yep, Ben Scott's definitely worth a mention. A quick shout out, because I don't think that there's a lot of collective NFL talent on this starting offensive line right now, but I will say Dylan Raiola, who was the offensive lineman for the Detroit Lions, who is the uncle of Dylan. He's done a tremendous job with this offensive line group, dude, because I think they play above their talent level right now. I do not think that's an overly talented team offensively from an offensive line perspective, but I think they're getting a lot out of. He is the most important Raiola that we're talking about on today's show, Dylan Raiola. Shout out to him.
That's very true.
Yes. Quick, if I can, for the skill position, Dante Dowdell, who was a Oregon transfer, the running back, 6'2", 225. I think he's plenty explosive, dude, for his size. I don't know if he's creative, but in a straight line, that guy can go 0 to 60 very quickly, and he's got a big frame. And then the return of Isaiah Nayer, man. We're finally seeing what...
Yes.
So he was a Wyoming kid, for people that remember, and he was great at Wyoming. He had a 1,000-yard season. He was a big transfer portal kid, went to Texas, was supposed to be a big dude for Texas, but then got hurt, and then the injury just derailed his entire time at Texas. At Nebraska now, and man, a couple of these plays he can make outside his frame with his big catch radius, long arms. Like he can make a lot of nice plays, and he actually runs better than I think you think. He's going to be like a 4.5 flat, 4.51 type of dude, I think. So he can run well enough to push it vertically, but then it's his size and his catch radius, I think, that really wins the show.
I forgot that I wrote him down. All right, before we close out, any other guys that you want to bring up?
He made a couple catches, but Jamal Banks was the wide receiver that transferred from Wake Forest. He's a big body frame, really physical, but I just don't think he's going to run overly well, so might be a little bit of a limited guy. Kind of think the similarly of the Thomas Fidone kid, the tight end who wears number 24, which is hilarious.
Yep.
Big frame. Apparently he was a super athlete coming out of high school, but I know he's been injured a bunch, and I think that's kind of gotten zapped from him a little bit because he did not look like a great athlete on film to me. But man, Dylan Raiola's got some pretty talented pass catchers to throw to, though, man. There's a lot of talent there.
We'll be back tomorrow or later on in the week to break down the Tennessee-Oklahoma film. So another young quarterback that we're going to be hyping up. Hit the subscribe button, 5-star review at Joe DeLeone, at Rise and Draft, at the First Team Pod. We'll talk to you folks later.